Welcome back to another episode of Born Again Bowhunting Podcast. Tonight we're going to be talking about old Matt's kill.
Not to let you know what happened,
Yeah.
but Matt's kill.
No suspense.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
And that would have been
Tuesday night.
Yes.
Tuesday night. Yep. So yeah, we struck Tuesday night.
First strike of the hunt.
Yeah, first blood at camp, and it was a buck. So just to kind of let everybody know what he is, he's about 100-inch 8-point. He might be a little shy, but we haven't put a tape on him. But we're just guessing. And went in there was as Black just smacks the mic.
I just wanted to cross my arms.
Your watch is going to keep bumping it.
Yeah, just be careful, buddy. They're kind of sensitive. So I went in there and I was hunting that velvet deer, and he actually shed the night that I killed my buck.
Old
And
130 Velveeta shed.
old Velveeta is no longer any cheesier.
Dude, this video is going to be so cool because if you watch him if you watch the first one or the second one, third one, you're going to see, he's in velvet, and then all of a sudden, he's not.
Nope.
Yeah. So let's just get into the hunt. I let everybody know that what happened, but let's get into the hunt and talk about what happened. And I actually made a move. I was in a tree and then tore down and moved. Talked a little bit with Black and Stevie, just getting their opinions on what I should do. And they let me know before the hunt, hey, if the wind starts doing this, don't be afraid to get down. And it got down. The wind switched and I got down. But we'll get into the hunt. So it was Tuesday night. Kind of want to rewind a little bit. I had that velvet buck Sunday night. Let's get into that hunt first. So Sunday night, after the opener on Saturday, and if you guys want to listen to that hunt, it'd be on our first podcast. Black had a crazy first evening set, and so did I. So we went into the same spot, set up the same way, and unfortunately, the landowner decided, or I should say the land manager, decided that he was going to go for a stroll in his new Gator, or I shouldn't say new Gator, his Ranger with a new battery in it. So I had a cheap spy point on the field that Black was sitting in the first night. And you actually weren't hunting there because you were giving it a break because of what happened the first night. But I get a picture, my phone dings, and it's the only place in Kentucky that we have phone service. So my phone dings, and I see this Ranger drive by. And I'm like, I'm not going to name drop the manager's name or who gave us permission, but I'm like, that looks like the old boy that gave us permission that we've been hunting on the last couple of years. And I'm looking at the picture, and it's like a cheap spy point. So everybody that runs spy point, you realize that the pictures are like dog poo. No diss against Spy Point, but they're just not. It's not quality.
It's very pixelated.
Yeah, very pixelated. So I'm 100% sure, or I should say 99% sure, that it's the old boy that we know. And all of a sudden, I think I text Jarrett and I said, "Well, my hunt's over. I might go do something else, or I might go. I was mad." And all of a sudden, I hear old boy just putting through the woods, right where the deer come from.
Which is where the deer are bedded.
Oh, 100%. They come right out of it. And he just putts around, and I hear him breaking over sticks and driving over everything. And I texted him and said, "Hey, you out in the woods right now?"
What you doing?
And he goes, "Yeah, I just put a new battery in this Ranger, and you hunting?" I said, "Well, yeah." "Well, it looks like I ruined your hunt, didn't I?" "Well, yeah, you kind of did. But it's all good. I mean, that's the stuff that we have to deal with." So he apologized and didn't realize I was hunting because I kind of hid my truck. So in his defense, it's okay.
Right.
He looked for the truck at first and he said, "Well, I didn't see your truck." And what he didn't know is I dropped you guys off, Jared and Kevin. I dropped them off at another field that he owns, or manages, I should say, leases, whatever. And dropped them off and then just kind of parked in between. So in his defense, he didn't see the truck.
He didn't know.
So long story short, I thought my hunt was over. This was maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock, getting to be prime time. I thought about climbing down, but I figured, we're hunting kind of an urban area, so I figured, well, maybe they're used to it. Maybe we'll figure something out. So I actually sat until legal was a little bit before 8:30.
It was like 8:26 or something like that.
So at 8, let's call it 8:15, just to be safe. I don't really remember the time, but it was dark, getting dark.
Camera lights almost
dead. And as anybody knows that self-films or films, or even if you watch YouTube videos, camera lights always go first. So like half an hour before legals, your camera starts losing its oomph. And here he comes, old Velveto and a doe. And I can see them with my naked eye. The camera can barely see them, and I'll throw some footage up as well. I started filming them with just the camera light, just regular. And then I run a camcorder that also films in night vision. So I threw it on night vision just in case he got close enough that I was going to plug him. And I was going to run a timestamp so everybody thought, like everybody knew 100% it was legal. Like, camera can't lie. Like, it records the time and everything that it records in. So, you know, I didn't want to do it with the night vision on, but I figured if I can kill him, I can kill him. Well, he walks by it like 35, 36, 37, I can't remember, yards. Full draw on him. I just can't see him through my peep. It's just one of them things where it's just too dark. And I could see his silhouette, and it was one of them things where I drew back and I looked off of my bow, like I canted my head so I wasn't looking down the peep to see him, and then I came back on my peep and I just couldn't make him out. I saw a silhouette, but it wasn't worth it to me. So I let down and he walked. So that was Sunday night. The second time that I've ever had a full velvet deer in bow range in my life, and I let him walk again because I just didn't want to take a bad shot. So Monday night, because I killed on Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Monday night is when Stevie was with me, and he was feeling really bad. And if you guys haven't listened, I don't know how these podcasts are going to air, but we did a podcast for what happened to Stevie. And if you want to listen to that one, it'll either air before this or after this. Just be patient, or if you've already listened to it. But something happened to Stevie in camp, and he was hurting bad. Got sick on us, and he was filming me. But that night we didn't see a buck. And were you sitting up front, Black? Did you see a buck that night or not?
No, I wasn't sitting up front. That was the night that I went back behind you guys, based off the wind to sit closer to the river.
That was the day you wind bumped that buck.
Yeah.
So we went in there Monday night. They weren't in there for some reason, it happens. Like, deer move around a little bit. It's okay. It wasn't a very eventful night. We seen a couple does and a small spike or a forky or something, but he was full fuzzy. But he almost got it. But
well, that was, and then ended up being the night that he came out. We think in that front field.
Oh, he
would have been sitting because he was bedded.
Yeah, you're right. So because it's in an urban area, I'm gonna sound like we were spotlighting, but we weren't. Because it's in an urban area, we pulled into a driveway and we just pulled in to turn around, and out of dumb luck, our headlights hit the deer that we were trying to hunt. And he was in front of the property where Black was sitting night one.
On the edge of that property.
And he was just sitting there like with a doe bedded down. So 100% he came out, and if Black would have been sitting there, and he was still fuzzy. So that was
no, there's no telling also if he would have came out like in the
legal.
power line cut.
Yeah.
Like way out to your,
Who knows?
Yeah,
he worked that.
But he was there at some point.
He worked that field, yeah. So just dumb luck. And to rewind, Black, he was going to hunt a different area, and Stevie was going to go film me because I had the best chances of killing a deer because I seen that full fuzzy 2 days in a row. And I knew it never works that way. You never get 3 chances in a row in my life. Like, it just doesn't work like that in hunting. You always get 2 chances. If you don't capitalize, you're done, in my opinion. So, like, we went back there. I was optimistic, but I was still, like, the odds of me seeing this deer are pretty slim. Well, we're setting up, and it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Not even 6, 5:30. We're setting up, and the goofy buck runs by us, and we don't even have any camera gear on or anything. Old Black went to try a new area, and the wind swirled, and he accidentally bumped him out of there, and he wind bumped him, and the deer just, like, strolled by us at 20 yards. Like, me and Stevie were setting up in the tree, and we hear a deer blow. We look over, and the goofy buck's just standing there at 20 yards, just looking at us. I thought, oh my, if we could have just had 5 more seconds. Like, Stevie was literally hanging his camera. I was knocking an arrow on my bow. But so that was Monday night's hunt, and then Tuesday night we went back in there, and I'm gonna get back into the wind thing. So the wind was coming out of the north, and I have to sit to the north of where the deer come in at. The deer work. Imagine the deer work west to east, and with a north wind, they're gonna eventually cut your wind. So I asked Stevie and Black beforehand. I said, well, what happens if it does this, or what do you guys think about this? Should I get down? What time should I get down? When will the river pull? Because remember, if you guys listen to the first podcast, we're hunting a river source. It's quite a big river. If you have any common sense about yourself, you can probably guess which one it is. We are hunting a very large river. And I was wanting to know, like, when should I trust the wind and when should I trust the thermals of the river? And I didn't know what time to get out. And I think we decided by like 6:30 at latest, if the wind is still not right, get down. But like 6 o'clock, 6:10, I just had this gut instinct. And I was just like, you know what? Let's just climb down. Bing! So I climbed down, and the way this property lays out, and if you guys want to see it I'll show a little bit on the YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. But if you're listening, please jump on the YouTube if you want to see this visual. But there's a grass patch where you can hide a couple guys. Like it's that tall hay that they bale or whatever. But it was a wet spot, so he wasn't able to cut it. So I climbed down and I binoed it before I left, and I figured out where I wanted to be. I climbed down and I went about 100 yards back. I went 100 yards east, so that because the deer are coming from west to east, and I wanted to get back far enough where they weren't going to get my ground set. I went 100 yards back, cut across the field, and then followed this basically like fence row up and sat in the grass. Now the grass was about chest high, maybe a little bit between.
Yeah, almost taller.
Yeah.
It was pretty high.
Yeah.
It's very, if you're sitting in it or kneeling in it, you can't see above your head. So what I did was I crawled and made a shooting lane through a patch where I thought that they were going to come through. So I crawled out, and then I crawled back, and just me doing that made a human-sized path, basically, through the grass. Looking back at it, I probably shouldn't have made something that large, but I didn't know what else to do in such a short period of time, and I was trying to self-film, of course, so it was just, I had to make something work. So I set up on the ground with anticipations of killing this deer at like 5 steps. That's an exaggeration, it was probably more like 5 yards, but I mean, he was right in my face. And I knew that I was going to draw and hold, and as soon as he hit that opening, I was going to just send it. So I'm sitting there, all set up. I got my camera decorated in grass. I just cut some grass off with my knife, and like Black gave me some paracord. I tied some paracord around it, and I just decorated that baby. The thing that I didn't like about the setup was, if anybody films or understands how a camera works, a camcorder's lens is on the left side of the camera. So I wasn't able to sit on the right side of the camera like I wanted to. So I had to have the camera to my right, which was more exposed in the opening. I knew it was going to get me, but I thought I could get away with it. I thought he was going to at least give me a shot. So I'm sitting there on my knees, and I'm just kind of like slowly pivoting my feet because the deer are going to come out at 40 yards. Like as soon as I see them, they're going to be at 40 yards. They're going to be in range. So I'd slowly like shift weight and like slowly like get off my knees and just kind of like sit on my feet. And I was behind such a big grass patch that they weren't going to see me. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and like any other ground and pound sit, you get to a point where it's like, I just cannot stay on my knees or feet anymore. I got to stand up. Like your legs are just killing you. And it was almost prime time. It was probably past prime time, and I'm just like, I got to stand up. I knew the grass was tall enough that I'd get away with it, so I stood up. And like clockwork, like any other time, the minute you stand up or do something, they always come out. So I stand up, and the velvet buck, Velveto, comes out, but he's completely shed. And he has about, what would you say, like an 8-inch just
dreadlock of
velvet hanging from his bases. And I glassed him real quick because his rack was like pearl white. And And it just rained that day, like really, really hard.
Rained a ton that morning.
It was like midday. We had a downpour, so we talked about that. We thought that the rain washed the blood away. Because I didn't recognize him at first because his rack was so white.
Yeah.
So I glassed him, and I'm like, oh, that's that full velvet deer. So I get down, and I'm situating the cameras, turn everything on, and my main camera is just pointing at the hole, and I have a point of view camera on me. And I'm watching this deer, and I wish I could have got more footage of it, but from what I was doing, it was the best I could do. He, like a V-line, just comes straight for me. And at one point in time, he's like at 10 yards. I have my bow in my hand, and I'm just waiting. I wanted him to get... I could still see him through the grass. It wasn't thick enough where I couldn't see movement, so I knew that if I could see his movement, he could see my movement. I didn't want to draw until it was close enough to kill him. Obviously, he was close enough, but I wanted him in my lane. So he comes out, he kind of mills around, comes right for me, and then like he starts coming towards my opening, and I'm ready to draw, and I almost get back, and he like stops for a minute, and he's so close that I can hear him breathe. Like he like wheezes or something. So it was like a cough, wheeze, something. I hear him wheeze, and I go to draw back. He takes a couple more steps. I can see his antlers above the grass, and I just rip my bow back, and I'm at full draw, and I'm just waiting for him in the hole. And the footage is insane. I'm on the ground, on my knees, at full draw. This deer's 5 yards away from him, hiding behind a grass patch. All I can see is the tips of his antlers, and I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm ready to plug him. 20-yard pin is just like buried on where I think his vitals would be when he steps out. I'm watching his antlers go across, and all of a sudden he stops. And he's short of, because I was left of the camera, he's short, and I can't see vitals. All I can see is his neck and his head. And I knew he saw the camera. I just knew it. So as soon as he stops, now granted, he's at 5 yards. I'm shooting a very heavy setup, and it's just grass. And it's not like thick stem stuff either. Like we're talking, imagine taking your yard grass and just letting it get waist high. Like it's just thin grass. So I was moving my bow to just send one through the grass at him and just aim center mass and just plug him. And he didn't even give me enough time to think. If you watch the video in real time, he stops and maybe a second and a half goes by and he's gone. So he takes off. I'm defeated. I throw my bow down. I'm saying everything not nice in the world about this deer that he can probably hear. And
For sure.
the buck that I killed, the 100-inch 8-point, he wasn't the smartest thing in the world, I can promise you that much. Old boy's out there just looking at me as I'm just cursing a storm at this other buck that now he's out of velvet. I've had 3 opportunities at him, all in bow range, and I've messed every single one of them up. So in my head, I'm just like the worst thing on the planet Earth. I've let the guys down. I've let everybody down. Like, I've let myself down, and I was in the dumps. And all of a sudden, I kind of look up, and that 100-inch 8-point's just kind of looking at me. Like, he don't know what's in this funky-looking owl over there in the old Osseo gear sitting on the ground, son. They don't sit on the ground. They sit in trees. So old boy comes strolling over, and he was like, he's probably at 20, 25, 30 yards, and he's just kind of looking. And he strolls over, and he's facing me like a frontal shot. And like I told myself, I said, if this old boy steps in my opening, he's getting it. And he comes, and he's just looking at me, kind of stomps a little bit. I draw on him because I think he's going to step in my opening. I'm holding for some time. And he gets frontal. And like he was kind of quartered a little bit. He was kind of, and I wanted him, if I was going to shoot him frontal at 20 yards, I wanted it to be straight frontal. I didn't want it to be cockeyed anyway. I wanted to get in the good stuff. So he stomps at me one time and turns his body. As soon as he stomps and turns, old Matty just sends it. Something about them deer down there, and going back to Black's first podcast, something about them deer, they are jumpy little suckers. And, you know, everybody knows my bow shoots so fast. My 250 feet per second bow almost didn't get to him in time at 20 yards. Because he was dodging and dipping and ducking. And it's like I was throwing a wrench at that old boy. And I hit him. He spun on me. And I hit him right behind the shoulder. Kind of imagine hitting him frontal, behind the shoulder, angling towards the opposite ham. So I knew it was lethal. Like, it got in there and got everything, and I'm shooting such a heavy setup that it buried everything to the fletchings. And the deer takes off, like, you could tell he was hurting. The diaphragm pop that you hear, and he might have blew too, like when I shot.
Just let some air out. Whether it was from the hit or from staring at you before the shot.
I'm not sure what it was. You can't tell. And it's too hard to tell, but
yeah, it is.
The diaphragm mixed with the blow, like, it's the loudest pop that I think I've ever heard on a hit.
It's loud.
And so the diaphragm pop smacks. You can tell he's hurting, like he bulldozers a little bit, and then he gets back up on his feet, and I stand up and I'm watching him, and I remember thinking to myself, like, that shot's awful in my head because it's not perfect. You know, everybody wants that perfect shot. It's not what I wanted.
Broadside.
It's not broadside. It's not what I wanted. I wanted a frontal shot. And it's like, I messed up. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what an idiot. And I'm watching this deer run, and I know that he's hurting because I've watched a million deer after they get hit. I know he's hurting. And I'm watching him run, and all I can see is the fletchings buried. And I don't pay attention to anything besides the arrow and sound. I wish I would have remembered what tree he ran by. I don't remember nothing besides that arrow. And then I remember when he went to the woods, it sounded like he tripped over something, got back up, and then crashed. And it's all on audio too if you want to watch the YouTube video. And I remember telling the guys, like, I think he crashed, but the shot scares me. So, of course, I celebrated and texted Black and Stevie and just said, I just shot one. And they were all happy for me and whatnot, and they just said, hey, stick it out, maybe look for some blood or something like that, and we'll come help you here in a minute after their hunt. So before it got super dark, I went out there and I wanted to look for blood on where I hit him. So I go out there, I shine my light for just maybe 30 seconds. I can't find a drop of blood. So that scares the heck out of me. I knew the shot was... I figured that because of the way it angled, I figured that, guts and stomach and everything. Because I went through the boiler room, but I also got guts and, and stuck him in the back of his ham. I figured something plugged the hole. Well, little did I know, he just didn't bleed at all. So I looked for blood, didn't find any. Talked to you guys when we met up. Went back to the truck, talked to Stevie and Black, showed him the footage. Everybody said it was a dead deer. Jarrett and Kevin were not on that farm. They were on a different farm, excuse me. And we went to the gas station and I showed you guys the footage from start to finish. I filmed it on my phone. This is a little pro tip for anybody that films. If little LCD screens on cameras are so small, take your cell phone out and film it. And then that way you can go frame by frame back on your phone. So like I filmed it off of my cell phone and then we went frame by frame on the phone. Shot looked good. Like 100% it was a lethal kill, we thought. Black said the deer went 50 yards and piled up. And in reality, pretty much did.
It was pretty close.
But I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm always like that. Like that deer that I shot last year, I watched him fall, but I watched him get back up and then fall again, and it just worried me that like he was struggling so much that I gave him like 6 hours. But so we gave this deer 12 hours, and the next morning I slept in. The rest of the guys went out and hunted. And when they got back to camp, we all piled up in the truck, and we got there, and the thing that bothered me the most was we didn't have any blood. And everybody was asking me what tree he ran by, like, where did he enter the woods? I had no clue. Black's like, how do you not know? And I'm like, I don't know.
And based off of the crashing sound, we were trying to find brush that he went through, limbs that he popped off, just anything that would lead us towards the place that he jumped through. And
then for anybody that doesn't shoot or may shoot, or know, I should say, about a single bevel broadhead, they don't bleed a lot at first. And that's the only thing I don't like about single bevel. And I don't know why they don't bleed a lot at first, but it takes them a good like 30 yards to open up. This is the fact. But what I can say is every deer that I've shot with a single bevel hasn't gone very far. Like normally they can die and you can see them, like they'll die in eyesight normally. Like I'm talking like a range of about 50-60 yards they fall over. So I knew I had a good arrow setup. I knew I had a good head. I just was getting very, very uncomfortable with no blood. So because of the shot, we figured that it was all plugged up, and everybody thought we weren't going to have much blood with shot placement anyways. We just got in a line.
Yep.
We got 10 yards apart, and we're like, we're going to grid search this baby until we find him. Because everybody thought he was dead.
Yeah.
I think I was the only one that was questioning it just because it was my deer, and of course I was nervous. So I got misleaded, I should say, or I read some sign of a briar patch that was all tore up. I think it might have been from that first buck, old Velveto, running through there.
Yeah.
And Kevin, Jarrett, and myself, we kind of stayed on one side, like the right side, and then Black actually found something that he liked, and he's like, well, I'm going to stay on this left side because I think this is the direction he ran. Well, long story short, maybe 10 minutes goes by.
Yeah, we had not walked more than 60 yards, like max.
And we were taking our time.
I had only went 20 yards at that point in time.
Yeah, we were boogieing, but...
Well, all I was doing was just scanning. Like, the vegetation was up, but you could see it. If there a dead deer was there, you could see it.
Yeah.
It was pretty broken up.
All I was doing was scanning back and forth, checking behind logs, like in case he bedded behind something. I was looking, and all of a sudden I hear old Stevie give out this, like, just the most comfortable whistle that I've ever heard. And I knew they found it. And I take off running, and I'm yelling at Jarrett, turn the camera on, and we run over there. And Black and Stevie are both standing there filming me, and I'm like, oh, they found it. Like, I know they found it. And then them sorry suckers are like, hey, go over there by that big tree.
Black's like, there's blood over there.
There's blood over there on that tree. I'm like, there ain't no blood. There better be a deer. And Stevie kind of points at the big tree. He's like, yeah, right over there by that big tree. As soon as he pointed, I seen the white belly. I just celebrated, started screaming, threw my bow down, and, like, just took off running. I think that's the hardest, most emotional, like, 100-inch deer that I've ever hunted in my life.
Well, and not just that, but how many years have you been down here trying to shoot a buck?
This will be my 5th year.
5 years.
Yeah. So everybody listening to this are probably like, oh, Matt has no idea what he's doing. It takes 5 years to kill a buck. So granted, I want to kind of rewind. And
you have passed on a lot of deer.
I've passed significantly larger deer than that, but this year I told myself that I'm not going to be an idiot. I need to get that first one off my chest. I need to get that monkey off my back. And I told myself the first deer that was at his ears was going to get it. That was my goal. I wanted something at his ears. And that's what that deer was. And it was a godsend. And honestly, I want to talk about this a little bit. After messing up so many times, I said a prayer. And, obviously we are a Christian group. And I want to be vocal about this. I don't want to hide the fact that we're not hiding the fact that we're followers of Christ. So I sat down and I prayed. I haven't even told you guys this. I sat down and prayed, and I asked God, if this is a direction that you want me to go in life, please give me a sign. Because I felt like everything was just going against me, and I didn't know if it was something God wanted me to do anymore. And I know that sounds rough, and I know it's like, oh, Matt, don't give up after 3 or 4 hunts. Like, it was just very emotional for me that my dream was a velvet buck, and it just slipped through my hands. And I asked him, I said, if this is something that you want me to do and pursue, and if this is something you want me to do for you, give me a sign. And I killed that buck that night. It wasn't the one I was after. I think that's a good lesson to learn. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the one I wanted. But obviously that deer wasn't the one God wanted me to kill. For whatever reason, that little 8-point was the one he wanted me to kill. And it's probably a life lesson that, you don't always get what you want in life. And you just got to be thankful for what God provides. He didn't let me kill the 130-inch velvet, but he let me kill a 100-inch hard-horned 8-point, and that's my first out-of-state deer. Couldn't be happier. He answered my prayers, and it doesn't always work like that either. I wasn't necessarily looking for a kill that night. I just wanted something. Like, just show me something that you still want me to do this. And, my prayers were answered. It doesn't always happen like that. I don't want you guys thinking that, you say a prayer and God's just going to bend over backwards for you. It's all timing. And for whatever reason, he answered that prayer that night, and I couldn't be happier. So, I'm very thankful. I'm actually getting a little emotional thinking about it because We had a very one-on-one, heartful conversation for quite some time. I just sat there and prayed for like a half an hour after I moved. And it was a good conversation. So, that was the hunt. Hugged the guys, screamed, and
dude,
called old...
You were running towards Black and Steve. You're like, turn the camera on. I'm like, trying not to eat it. I'm like, trying to flip my buttons. I'm like, oh gosh. Trying to keep up with you because you were just sprinting.
So I'm on the far right of everybody here. And I just look over to my left and I just see Matt taking off and Jarrett's just following right behind him with the camera.
I'm like, I'm trying.
Well, like, when I went to the far left, I seen right before he called us up to get online, I seen a briar, but it was hung over kind of a trail. But there wasn't any briars on it. Like, it had been ripped off. Like, something had went through there fairly quickly, you know, so that's why I wanted to be on the left side. As soon as we got up there, I stepped on a log, and pro tip, step on the logs, you get a little higher, you can see a whole lot more.
The old elevation help.
Yeah, and as soon as I stepped on a log, I started on my right side and just slowly scanned. I looked over, like, right there it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I got within like 10 yards of the deer, and I just didn't realize until I stepped on that log. And I got Stevie's attention, and I was like, hey, Stevie. He like looked up at me, I was like, right here. He goes, huh? I was like, turn the camera on. He goes, huh? I was like, turn the camera on.
Well,
He's like walking around. I'm like, turn the camera on.
He was honestly half dead.
He was out of it.
He was like, oh.
His whistle, though, dude.
Yeah, I don't know how he whistled like that.
It was such like just a peaceful tune. He was like, come on, boys. Yeah. Come over here.
It wasn't no like sharp, like, you need to look over here, like, it was just a...
Almost like he's whistling a tune.
Yeah, like a little chipper tune.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, my stomach went from like inside my throat to just, I was so excited.
As soon as he heard the soft whistle, he goes, he's over there. I
yelled at Jared, like, turn that camera on, turn the camera.
Like, let's go.
Old Maddie needed to check his bow after because he like threw it like a javelin. he just
dude,
took off after him.
I did. I've never done that, and I probably shouldn't have, and I don't encourage that. That's a lot of money to just throw around. And
because we got back to camp that night, and it just hit you, and you're like, hey boys, what side of my bow did I chuck my bow on?
Old Dad Kevin over there, just like, first thing he did was picked it up, wiped the dirt off, and gave it to me.
We needed that, though.
No, but we still got a lot of days of hunting left, and we're recording this podcast on Thursday, and a couple other, we've thrown a couple more arrows, and some deer have hit the ground, and we're going to get those podcasts running to you, but just in chronological order, mine hit the ground first.
First blood, boy.
Unfortunately, I do want to point this out. Unfortunately, we were not able to save the meat. I do want to be honest about this. I felt awful because we are not just horn hunters. Now, granted, if it was a doe, I probably would have went in there that night because the only reason why you shoot a doe is for the meat.
For the meat, yeah.
And, and if you're just shooting does to shoot them, I mean, come on. Let's be better people than that. But, like, obviously, if it was a doe, I would have went in there that night and tried to salvage the meat the best I could while being responsible because you don't want to bump her. But with it being a buck and my first out-of-state buck, sorry about the
Is it Stevie?
I don't know.
Black's phone's going off, but it's all right. We're in the camper. So, what was I saying? Oh, with the buck, with it being my first out-of-state buck, I just wanted to be extremely safe. Black said, "Let's go in there tonight." I think the rest of the guys said the same thing. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to bump him because the minute you go in there, you bump him and then he's gone forever. And where it's at, like, you can't get a dog in there because it's super urban and like I just didn't want to take any chances. And yeah, so we let him stay 12 hours, and by the time we got there, it was probably 12 and a half, 13, and by the time we actually got back to the woods, it was probably even a little bit later. And
by the time we found him and back to anywhere to cut him up, it was just...
The meat was like green and just smelling nasty, and I'd rather be... it's the 21st century, like nobody's starving. I hate to sound like that, but in our area, I know people are starving.
We're not hunting just for the food.
Yeah, but we're fortunate enough that God provides food on our table every night, so we don't have to... It's not like, we're going to starve if we didn't eat that deer, so I just... made the decision like, hey guys, we're not gonna eat this thing.
He was rank.
Because he smelled like straight death.
And also, part of being the fact you probably popped the intestine.
I did. It was
everything, and then it just sat.
Yeah. So
all night, and it's like
lungs, liver, guts.
It's still 70 degrees all night long here, or if not more.
Yeah.
Hotter. So
just like I said, guys, imagine the arrow entering right behind, or actually it cut half his scapula off. So like hitting him in the shoulder, and then heading towards his opposite ham. So basically anything in his cavity was just toast.
Not to get gruesome, but what did the land manager say about the hit? What did
he goes, now just imagine this in the most like southern good old boy accent ever, and I'm not going to do it to try to, get anybody, all fired up, but just imagine like the most southern boy, good old boy accent. He goes, you boys throw an axe at this thing, or what?
The hole was large.
It was a big one. It was a big hole.
So because the deer was quartering to me, like the cutting diameter obviously was much larger. And I'm not going to say that the kudu point was because of that hole. I mean, the kudu point helped.
For sure.
I'm happy with the single bevel, but it's not because of that. Any broadhead would have sliced him open. Now, they wouldn't have got the penetration. They probably wouldn't have broke bone. But, I'm not going to say that my 5-inch hole that I put in him was from the kudu point, because that's just not being realistic.
That's just angle-wise.
Yeah, it was just because of the angle. He was quartering to me, and the way he spun, it just sliced him like I don't know.
Like an axe.
Like an axe.
Yeah.
It was
you boys throw an axe at this thing?
It was funny. It was funny.
Oh, but it was a great time. I can't express how happy I am to share this moment with all you guys, and it means a lot that you guys took, the time off of work and family and friends and come down here and hunt. And we still got some time left, and I know for a fact some more deer are gonna hit the ground. So
that was good.
But
it really kind of boosted everybody's confidence and just morale at camp too, because
because when you're
with
on a
the
big
rain
hunt,
and everything else, it got to you a little bit. Even though it was a few days in, if you're hunting every day, it takes a toll.
Yeah,
on
you're
you.
hunting twice a day, morning and evening. It's raining. Nobody's, you're getting close, but you're not getting any. It just, every time you go out, it wears on you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the first deer, especially the first buck, it just kind of takes the pressure off of everybody, because it's like, okay, well, now, Maddie, I was fortunate enough to kill it, but now Maddie killed a buck, so now it's like the pressure's not on everybody anymore, and it's kind of nice because, in reality, you go on these trips with high expectations, but you have to be realistic. You kill 1 or 2 bucks on these trips, it's a win, because you're going and you're hunting a foreign state for a week on limited intel. I mean, come on. I mean, that's tough for anybody.
Yeah.
So we're not hunting like high guided areas. We're not hunting like leasing farms, or we're knocking on doors, public and small private, like anybody else could. We're sharing property with people. We're just making it work. So that 100 incher is a trophy in my mind.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that's the hunt. Please watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
It'll be a great one, yeah. On the ground.
It's cool to see the switch from tree to ground.
Yeah.
And then to make it happen on the ground when most people don't like to sit on the ground.
Yep. Just decided that the wind... And let's talk about that a little bit. I know we're getting kind of over where we wanted to be on the podcast, but the switch, we've learned that if it's over about 5 miles an hour, the thermals just don't really do much. If it's a light wind, like under 5, especially towards dark, when that sun goes down, the thermals really suck it in there.
If you're sitting next to like some sort of good water source,
large body of water,
sitting at the bottom of a good-sized hill,
steep hill, yeah,
with your evening thermals and just your current thermals. I mean,
yep.
If it's 5 or under, man, just let it pull it away.
Just let it do its thing,
Yep.
yeah. So just be patient with it. That was my biggest learning experience, was the thermals, and I'm glad that I made that switch, because in my mind I kept second guessing myself. I thought that the thermals would take over, but they never did. So I'm glad I switched. And I'm going to give credit to Black and Stevie too, because they talked to me before the hunt and said, if it does this, make sure you do that. and it worked.
Boy, Black.
My one win.
Only to this point, though.
Yeah, only at this point in time. Hopefully it changes.
We still got time.
Oh, yeah.
Just not on Velveeta.
That's right.
Not that
There
one.
might be a Forky or something still
There's
involved.
a Forky that there's a good chance is still in Velveeta.
Forky Velveeta may get it.
All right, I'm good if you guys are.
Yeah. I think you covered everything.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. You painted a pretty good picture of
You did.
the outcome too.
Thank you
That's
much.
good.
You did.
And we even got a nice little 4x4 Ranger ride back to the truck.
Dude, that was honestly almost the pinnacle.
We didn't even have to drag the deer.
Yeah.
We're gonna sound like spoiled little brats right now. We didn't even have to drag the deer. Old boy just shows up and asked if we killed it with an axe, and then we threw it in his Ranger, and he drove it back to our truck.
Well, and he's very appreciative of us
man.
hunting there too. He's like, keep shooting them, guys.
Yeah.
Keep after them.
So the guy that we're hunting on, he plants obviously some beans and corn and whatnot, and his yield every year is like significantly low.
Significantly. I mean,
And it's just from deer
the
damage.
deer just tear it up.
Now, granted, they're not in there as heavy as they were last year, but they're still in there, and he wants them dead, and we're willing to kill them.
Yeah. Well, we took 3 off last year, so that had to do a little something.
Yeah, it helped. But
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Remember, people, doesn't matter what you've done in the past, you can always be born again, and born again is out.
peace.